The only thing that you can count on is your God and yourself. And only half of that's true.
But no matter what the fuck was going on with me, I couldn't be depressed. America don't give a about a tragedy. We are the
Katt Williams' story isn't just tragic, it's haunting. It all began when he was just 13 years old and made the unthinkable choice to sleep in a Miami park rather than stay in a house that no longer felt like home. That runaway kid, broken but brilliant, would one day become one of America's most electrifying comedians, only to watch the same fire that made him unstoppable slowly burn him from the inside out.
I'm just going to go ahead and announce my retirement from stand-up. I'm kind of done. This is
how survival turned into self-destruction. Micah Sierra Williams, known to the world as Katt, was reading novels by the time most kids were still learning the alphabet. But instead of celebrating his gift, his parents, strict Jehovah's Witnesses from Cincinnati, treated it like a curse. Books weren't prizes, they were punishments. When other kids were grounded from TV or playtime, Micah was banned from the one thing that brought him peace: reading. His father, John Cornell Williams, had been part of the Black Panther Party, a man hardened by struggle and rebellion. His mother, Brenda Louise, fought to hold the family together while raising a son whose mind moved faster than anyone could keep up with. But brilliance without love is a lonely thing, and for Micah, that genius started to feel like a trap. By 12, he was already outshining high schoolers with science projects so advanced that teachers couldn't believe a kid built them. The National Science Academy in Dayton even offered him a scholarship, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to leave that suffocating house behind. But when he learned about the offer, something inside him snapped. Instead of running toward the opportunity, he deliberately failed a math test. When his parents found out, the disappointment turned to rage, and that rage turned into something darker. The words cut deep, the discipline turned cruel, and home stopped feeling like safety. In that strict household, questioning authority was a sin, and being creative felt like rebellion. Every argument became a battlefield, every conversation a test of survival. Then came the breaking point, the day young Micah looked into his father's eyes and realized that one of them wouldn't survive the next fight. That's when he made the boldest decision of his life. He'd rather live on the streets than stay in a house where his mind was treated like poison.
I knew Jesus left home at 13, so I didn't feel like I was out of pocket in any way.
With only $2,500 in his pocket and a loyal Rottweiler puppy by his side, 13-year-old Micah Sierra Williams walked away from everything he had ever known. No family, no plan, just faith, pain, and a desperate hunger for freedom. He hitched a ride with a trucker from a Dayton stop heading south to Miami, chasing nothing but the idea of escape. The 13-year-old who climbed into that truck wasn't just running away, he was carrying a lifetime of pain on his back. This was a kid who taught himself to read before kindergarten, now thrown into a world where survival had no rule book. When that truck stopped in Miami, Micah found himself alone in Coconut Grove, calling a park bench home for the next 4 long years. While other teens were worrying about homework, crushes, and prom nights, he was just trying to stay alive. The library became his classroom, 8 hours a day of pure hunger for knowledge. He devoured books like they were food, feeding a mind that had been punished for thinking too much. But wisdom doesn't fill an empty stomach, and survival doesn't come cheap. That's when desperation started whispering in his ear.
I had probably read 10,000 books at that period in my life.
At first, it was just one car radio, then another. Then it became routine. Every morning, young Micah would wander through Miami's quiet neighborhoods, scouting parked cars and hoping to find an unlocked door. Each stereo he sold meant another day he could eat, another night he could sleep without starving. The bitter irony hit him hard. Those same brilliant hands that once built award-winning science projects were now breaking locks just to stay alive. But the streets gave him an education no textbook ever could. He learned to read people better than any page, spotting danger in a glance, sensing betrayal in a tone. He figured out that making someone laugh could turn an enemy into a friend. Humor became his armor, his way to disarm chaos before it swallowed him whole. Comedy wasn't a dream, it was survival. Then one night, fate handed him a microphone. At just 15, broke and desperate, he lied about his age to a Florida club owner who needed a last-minute act. When Micah walked on that stage, something inside him lit up. Every ounce of pain, fear, and brilliance exploded into something the crowd had never seen before. His jokes weren't just funny. They were real, raw, and painfully true. The laughter hit like medicine.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What a pleasure to be.
For the first time ever, being different wasn't a curse, it was power. The audience didn't just laugh, they felt him. Every punchline carried the truth of a kid who had nothing left to lose. That night, Micah realized he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was transforming his pain into purpose. But even as the applause echoed, the scars stayed. The paranoia that had once protected him never left. Trust was dangerous, and letting people in felt like a trap. Every habit that kept him alive on the streets began twisting into something darker. By the time he hit 18, the same instincts that had saved him were now the ones holding him hostage. Micah had mastered the art of pretending everything was fine, smiling for the world while fighting battles that never stopped raging inside. By day, he was smooth, funny, and unshakable. But by night, the old pain crept back, whispering that he'd never really escaped. From the outside, his rise looked like a Hollywood miracle, a homeless kid turned comedy star. But deep down, the child who'd been forced to grow up too soon was still at war with his own mind. Then came 2001, the audition that changed everything. Friday After Next wasn't just another movie role, it was destiny. When Micah walked into that room as Katt Williams, he didn't just read lines, he brought the streets with him. Every joke, every glance, every smirk carried the energy of a man who had fought to survive when the world wanted him gone. When he transformed into Money Mike, he wasn't acting. He was confessing. It wasn't performance. It was autobiography wrapped in comedy.
See, the thing is, we just opened up around here, you know what I'm saying? And we've been having some problems, obviously, as you see. I appreciate
that role cracked open the door Hollywood had long kept shut. Suddenly, the same kid who once slept in Miami parks was sharing screen time with legends like Ice Cube and Mike Epps. He made audiences roar with laughter. But beneath the punchlines was real pain. Money Mike became iconic because Katt wasn't pretending to be that flashy hustler. He was that hustler who had seen both sides of the game. The chains, the swagger, the wit, all of it was armor covering the wounds he carried from his past. Then came BET's Comic View, and that's when things really started to explode. Katt's style was electric, smart but raw, confident but vulnerable. He wasn't chasing laughs, he was telling truths most comedians were too scared to touch. He spoke on race, poverty, survival, and the grind, not from theory but from experience. Every story felt lived in, every punchline came from a scar.
This is the kind of song when you walk into the Slauson swap meet with $400, and you know not only can you buy anything you want, bitch, you can buy a booth.
By the time the Pimp Chronicles Part 1 hit HBO in 2006, Katt Williams wasn't just another funny man, he was a voice of the people. Sharp as a razor, fearless, and real. The special went viral before viral was even a thing. His lines became street quotes, memes before memes existed. He was unstoppable. But behind the lights and cameras, pressure was building fast. The industry wanted consistency, but Katt was built for chaos. His mind thrived in unpredictability, but Hollywood demanded order, schedules, and submission. Managers, agents, and executives tried to polish him, to tame the fire that made him unforgettable. The more famous he got, the more control they tried to take, and the more he fought back. The money he earned didn't bring comfort. It brought paranoia. Having grown up with nothing, every dollar felt temporary, every deal felt like a setup. He couldn't shake the fear that one bad decision would send him right back to those park benches in Miami. Every contract negotiation, every handshake felt like a test of loyalty. The laughter that filled arenas didn't follow him home, and the silence after the spotlight turned off became unbearable. His genius, the same mind that turned pain into punchlines, now became his worst enemy. He overanalyzed every move, every friend, every opportunity. Trust became impossible. He had fame, money, fans, and respect, yet deep down, he was still chasing something he'd lost long ago: peace. The pimp persona that made him a legend wasn't just a character, it was a shield, a way to survive a world that kept trying to break him again and again. The larger Katt Williams' fame grew, the tighter the walls around him started to close. The pimp persona that once made him unstoppable was now a prison he couldn't break out of. He wasn't just a comedian anymore. He was a mirror, forcing America to look at its own reflection. And not everyone liked what they saw. Katt had always been bold, unfiltered, and ready to go where others wouldn't dare. But once his voice got too loud, too real, it started making powerful people squirm. His specials weren't just about laughter. They were confessionals, raw exposés of hypocrisy in politics, religion, and even Hollywood itself. The same fire that kept him alive on the streets now had him walking a dangerous tightrope in boardrooms full of smiling enemies.
Why is America that strong? Because of all of us that's in the room tonight. Not because white people are better or Hispanics are better because blacks are better. No, nobody. We all are the same.
Hollywood thrives on illusions. Fake smiles, fake morals, fake diversity. But Katt refused to play that game. He wasn't about to pretend that racism had magically disappeared or that poverty was just a bad life choice. His 2008 HBO special, It's Pimpin' Pimpin', pushed every line that polite society wanted to keep hidden. He didn't just tell jokes. He used comedy like a blade, cutting deep into systems built on lies and exploitation.
They say this is the best medicine ever. And then 3 months later, you hear this quiet-ass commercial. Have you or one of your loved ones?
And the audience loved it, but Hollywood didn't. Behind closed doors, executives whispered that he was too outspoken, too unpredictable, too real. They wanted the profit from his genius, but not the truth behind it. The more successful he became, the lonelier it felt. Surrounded by people who smiled at his face and schemed behind his back. The weight of it all started to show. His friends noticed the shift, the sleepless nights, the nervous energy, the constant feeling that someone was watching. His brilliance on stage started to blur with chaos off stage. Some nights he'd leave audiences breathless with pure genius. Other nights the pain would overwhelm him before he even hit the punchline. The line between performance and breakdown was getting razor thin. What had once been charming unpredictability was now terrifying instability. Everyone around him could see it. The exhaustion, the paranoia, the way his trust kept shrinking until no one could reach him. He realized that his success was being twisted, that his presence in movies and TV wasn't changing anything. They were using his face to sell the illusion of progress, while the problems he joked about stayed exactly the same. Katt started to feel like a pressure valve for society. Someone allowed to rant so the audience could feel better without actually doing anything. The system didn't want his truth. It just wanted his talent. The same industry that had celebrated his rise was now silently cheering for his downfall. Then came November 2008, the moment everything cracked wide open. In South Carolina, family members grew terrified when Katt showed up at the Mount Vernon Inn in nothing but a bathrobe and a towel wrapped around his head, wandering the property in confusion like a man lost between worlds. When police arrived, he didn't fight, didn't joke. He simply asked for directions to the nearest hospital. That single request would change everything.
Well, 4 caught up with Williams as he was ejected from a South Lake Union hotel around 7 p.m. On Sunday, Williams was arrested after an altercation at a nearby restaurant. Police say he argued with customers and threatened the manager.
Katt was admitted for a 2-week psychiatric evaluation, confirming what many close to him had long feared. He was battling bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. The same mind that crafted genius-level comedy was now tearing itself apart. These conditions had likely been growing since his violent, chaotic childhood. The trauma that never healed, just hid behind the spotlight. His sharp intelligence, the gift that made him unstoppable on stage, had become his curse, turning inward, analyzing, spiraling, creating entire realities that blurred with truth. The man who once made the world laugh was now trapped in a war against his own mind, and no punchline could save him this time. The same mind that made Katt Williams a legend was also making his illness harder to treat. His intelligence, once his greatest strength, became a double-edged sword, feeding the very storm he was trapped in. But the real tragedy wasn't just what happened to him, it was what it revealed about the world around him. In the Black community, mental health is too often dismissed or misunderstood. Seeking help is seen as weakness, while silence is mistaken for strength. And when someone like Katt, a genius raised on trauma and survival, reaches a breaking point, the system doesn't know what to do with him. Therapy isn't designed for a mind like his, and Hollywood definitely isn't built to heal the pain it profits from. After his 2008 hospitalization, the next decade became a public unraveling, a front row seat to a man losing his grip in real time. His behavior grew more erratic, his outbursts more unpredictable. In 2016, the world watched in disbelief as security footage showed him sucker punching a 7th grader in Georgia, only to be wrestled to the ground by the same kid. The clip went viral instantly, turning a once revered comic into a walking headline. It was painful to watch, a new low for someone who once had the world laughing with him. But that wasn't an isolated meltdown. It was one of many. The arrests piled up. Weapons charges, drug possession, child endangerment. Each one chipped away at his legacy. Each one screamed that something was deeply wrong. Fans were confused. Promoters stopped booking him, and the man who once commanded arenas was now fighting just to stay booked at all. The world saw chaos, but what they missed was the truth. This wasn't self-destruction. It was symptom. Katt wasn't trying to ruin his life. He was fighting his own brain. Every bad headline, every mugshot, every breakdown was another flare from a man who'd been crying for help in a language society refused to understand. The entertainment industry had no patience for instability. It wanted him funny, not fragile. They made millions off his pain, but offered nothing when that pain took over. His circle split in two, those who saw dollar signs and those who genuinely cared. Sadly, the ones who cared were the first to be pushed away. Paranoia and mistrust, the same instincts that once kept him alive, now kept him isolated. He built walls so high that even love couldn't reach him. The survival skills of a broken child had become the cage of a broken man.
I'm just going to go ahead and announce my retirement from stand-up. I'm kind of done.
On the nights he did manage to perform, the spark was still there. That unmistakable brilliance, that hypnotic mix of intellect and street wisdom would shine through, but only in flashes. 1 minute he'd have the crowd in tears of laughter. The next, he'd spiral into something that felt more like a breakdown than a set. The spontaneity that once made him unpredictable in the best way was now making audiences nervous and promoters terrified. The saddest part, watching one of the sharpest minds in comedy unable to turn that same insight inward. He could dissect politics, fame, and hypocrisy with surgical precision, but when it came to his own demons, he couldn't see the full picture. His illness blurred the lines between reality and paranoia, truth and fear. The man who built his career on brutal honesty could no longer be honest with himself. Still, even through the chaos, his genius kept breaking through. His 2024 appearance on Shannon Sharp's Club Shay Shay podcast reminded the world why he'll always be a legend. Within 24 hours, the episode racked up over 1 million views. Katt sat there sharp as ever, calling out fellow comedians for stealing jokes and exposing the dirty politics of Hollywood. He spoke with fire, clarity, and conviction, like a man who'd seen too much and refused to stay silent. But what made that interview so haunting was the contrast, the brilliance and the pain sitting side by side. You can see the genius that built his empire and the disorder that kept tearing it down. Katt Williams was both prophet and prisoner, a man whose truth cut too deep for a world that only wanted to laugh. Katt Williams' relationship with truth had become a storm, part brilliance, part heartbreak. His insights about the entertainment industry were sharp, real, and often spot on. But tangled within them were grand claims about his own power and genius, making it far too easy for critics to label him crazy instead of correct. The real tragedy, his mind, the same one that gave him unmatched wisdom, was also the one pushing him further into isolation, right when he needed people the most. The irony was brutal. The same conditions that made him a master of understanding people also made it nearly impossible for him to trust them. He was trapped in a painful loop, too valuable to ignore, too unpredictable to help. The industry loved his chaos, not his clarity. Hollywood wanted his fire on stage, but not his pain behind the curtain. The man who spent years exposing other people's uncomfortable truths was now facing his own. He needed help, but his illness made asking for it feel impossible. The entertainment world that had cashed in on his genius never built a safety net for artists like him. There were no systems, no real support, just people ready to film, post, and profit whenever he fell apart. They turned his suffering into spectacle, branding him the wild one, the unpredictable genius, the crazy comic. It was cruel and profitable. Katt's breakdowns sold headlines just as well as his jokes sold tickets. His mind, that beautiful, relentless mind, became both gift and curse. He could see the truth of everything: power, race, exploitation, survival, and he could explain it better than anyone. But that same awareness left him trapped, unable to escape the pain he could describe so clearly. The very intelligence that made him one of the greatest voices in comedy was now the thing keeping him from peace. And still, his influence is everywhere. You can see traces of Katt in nearly every new comic who dares to mix humor with social truth. His rhythm, his swagger, his raw honesty, they changed the game, but his legacy remains painfully complicated. A blend of brilliance and suffering, triumph and tragedy. Because while the world celebrated the performer, it failed the person. Katt Williams still tours, still commands the stage like nobody else. When that spotlight hits him, the pain transforms, becomes art, becomes laughter, becomes connection. In those moments, he's not broken, he's untouchable. His trauma turns into truth, his madness into magic. And the crowd, they feel it, because deep down, they see their own battles reflected in his. But when the lights go off, the fight continues against mental illness, against loneliness, and against a world that craves his authenticity but refuses to carry the cost of it. The real tragedy of Katt Williams isn't that he's mentally ill, it's that he became mentally ill in a society that profits from Black pain while giving nothing back for Black healing. Tell me what you think. Did Katt's truth-telling make him a target, or was it the price of his genius? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives like this. See you in the next one.